Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Data Dispatch. Let's talk about the total forecast that you guys need to hear for the markets this week, talking about this important clip with Palantir. Check it out.
You've loved it for a long time. It's currently, I think, about 67. Yes, it is. When do you think it hits 100?
I think we're going to, I originally said 3 to 5 years after it takes out 80, but I think we might even be there by mid next year at the latest. This thing is a monster. Nobody else has got a product like it. It's meshing data software that makes software work. Every legacy provider on the planet right now, Stuart, is in trouble. This might be the next Cisco, might be the next Oracle, might be the next SAP, and it's important people start thinking that way.
A very bullish statement coming out of Fox Business here, talking about Palantir. Could it be the next Oracle, the next Cisco? Talking about price targets of $100 sooner than expected. Now, before we get too far, we're going to be giving you guys a full breakdown what we're insinuating here about Palantir, what you see from the clip. Also, talking about some of the other big stocks that are the top of the list right now. We're talking about SOFI, Tesla, Nvidia, and just the markets for December, what we're expecting and what the market is really expecting in terms of market capitalization and performance. So if you're a new or returning viewer, hit that like button, subscribe for daily videos. Of course, not a financial advisor, collecting all the data and dispatching it to you. Now, pop it up on the screen here. Palantir sitting at $67. And we know the growth story that we've seen for Palantir. We've been tracking it pretty much on a daily basis since its low tens. Now, Palantir has been on this run, and we talk about the valuation, the price to earnings. Right now, that's been completely disconnected. The question, of course, is when is that actually going to be more of a reality? When are investors going to take that to more of a concern? When are we going to see that correction for Palantir? And how much fuel is behind the fire that we're seeing right now? Personally, in my own opinion, I still think we're seeing that fuel. With statements that are coming out there, what you've seen with Palantir, the run-up that we've seen across the board, talking about this $100 price target right now, and passing the 50, passing the 60s, and talking about this, what experts are coming out to say, I think $70 is on the table with this run. And one of the big reasons is because we have a lot of buying pressure that is continuing on into the markets for December in AI stocks. And you got fintech too, and also in addition, just a lot of the big Magnificent Seven stocks have a lot of growth behind them. And one of the big things here coming from Tom Lee, talking about, remember, there's still a substantial $7 trillion in cash that is sitting on the sidelines, noting to improve investor sentiment, stating that I won't be too worried about the next 12 months. So Tom Lee coming out here, giving a very bullish forecast over the next 12 months, and especially into December, looking at historical figures and especially during election years, he's coming out here with a very bullish regard for the month of December. So if we go with that, leading into Palantir right here, seeing some resistance at the 67, it'll be interesting to see what happens, but I think $70 could be on the table for the month of December. Only time will take. What do you guys make of that? But looking in here, talking about more on what Fitzgerald did, he was the guy that spoke about Palantir for the $100 price target within the next 3 to 5 years here. Basically, he's comparing it to different types of industrial titans such as Oracle and Cisco, talking about disrupting with these innovative data solutions. Now, we know everything that Palantir is all about. We don't need to go in about, who Alex Karp is blah, 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 and everything that they do. What we do know, though, is a lot of these institutional investors, I think, are starting to catch on. Retail has always been on Palantir's side for a long time, and now with their long-term play and what institutional investors, I think, are starting to see with their involvement into things on the commercial side of things and on the governmental side of things, that's where we're seeing this price run up. So yes, price to earnings, valuation, of course, that is very sky high right now. So the risk for downside potential is extremely high. But in the short term, I think there is still fuel behind the fire for Palantir, crazy to say, even at $67. Now, what Tom Lee has also talked about here, talking about the market outlook, not just for the rest of 2024, but into the 2025, is with the change in administration and some of the other key topics. And painting the optimistic picture for 2025, talked about working on these administration changes of pro-animal spirits. And what he's talking about, making a dovish Federal Reserve and stabilizing interest rates. Now, we know the Fed has came out with so far 75 basis points of reduction in terms of the federal interest the federal fund rate. What will happen and what we're expecting to see is that continuation of the dovish type of sentiment. Now, we do have some important type of market indicators that will be coming out here in just a few short days that we will cover. But why this keeps me bullish on one particular stock, this is SOFI, is because SOFI has been doing particularly well. And if we see a dovish Fed environment from the Federal Reserve, SOFI here in the last basically month has jumped up from about around 10 to 12 bucks up to about $16. And I think the growth story is starting to come to reality for SOFI, and the fact that they're going to be able to take more advantage of cheaper lending costs. We're going to see a reduction in interest rates, which could help increase borrowing costs for all consumers. SOFI does a great job in terms of fintech, doing very well in terms of the technological basis of being better than the basic banks, giving users a lot of different tools and access to different types of applications that traditional banks just have not caught up with. So the fact that SOFI has a hedge in the game here, and now a lot of people are starting to talk about it, I think there's a little bit of a growth story behind SOFI, especially with that Fed that is continuing to be on more of a dovish type of avenue. And what you see here, what we're seeing is a decent amount of price targets that are actually starting to increase for SOFI. You see here the analyst talking about on this article on the street, talking about increasing their price targets to $19, which he says high on the Wall Street, talking about a new price target up from $13.50. Impressive charges that we're seeing on the actual trading. And as far as sentiment indicators are concerned, it's solid grades on the board, talking about A+ for both the relative strength and earnings guidance, and an A for price momentum and B for a price trend. And this veteran trader here says the fact gets a score of 9.1 out of 10. So we're seeing a lot of bullishness in terms of analysts coming up behind SOFI, which is doing pretty good in terms of their earnings and in their revenue. So for this full fiscal year, SOFI projected adjusted net revenue of $2.5 billion, up from the previous gauge of about $2.4 billion. So the fact that guidance is also increasing on top of what's happening in the macroeconomic environment right here, talking about this pro-animal spirits, that is where I see bullishness behind in SOFI. Now, what are we expecting in some of the big things in the market this week? Some of the key takeaways to look for are November employment data. It's going to be due Friday after job openings and private sector employment reports. We're also going to see remarks from the Federal Reserve. More specifically, looking on Monday, we're going to get the final U.S. manufacturing PMI for November. We're going to see construction spending, and also the Fed president right here, the New York Fed president, is going to be delivering some remarks. That's going to be opening up the gate for tomorrow. And then you're going to see the job openings. That's going to be happening on December 3rd on Tuesday. And also some of the bigger types of companies will be reporting their earnings, looking at Salesforce right here. And then you're going to see Federal Reserve doing some more things and the ADP employment report coming on December 4th. So a lot of macroeconomic pieces of data in the first few days. A lot of investors will be listening to what the Fed has to say, especially with the remarks that we're going to get tomorrow. That is going to be a probability gauge on what's going to be happening with the last interest rate cut come December. Right now, what I've seen in my sources, it is about a 66% probability that we're going to see that 25 basis point cut in December. If that continues, that'll be more bullish for the month of December. And that leads me to the last thing here, is Nvidia stock on sale. A lot of people have been updating their discounted cash flow models and price targets for Nvidia, talking about the most important AI company in the world. People are now saying Nvidia is still at an attractive price with recent models. And with this dip that Nvidia came recently down here to about $130, we're seeing a rebound here to $138. Do we see Nvidia climbing back up to this area here in the 140s where we receive consolidation, possibly hitting here resistance at about that 150 where a lot of analysts have their price targets? I think that is incredibly possible. Right now, we are leading with all these stocks that we've talked about with a bullish perspective in the short term going into December. Do you guys think this is agree with that, or do you think that it's going to be bearish? Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Peace out. Take care. I'll catch you guys later. And here is to the Santa rally.